Obviously, the outcome of Monday Night Football was difficult to absorb, but the worst part is knowing that the Cleveland Browns lost a stalwart of their franchise. But either way, you guys know the drill. After the postgame show, we go into the lens. PFF's John Kosko along for the ride.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd on YouTube just keeps growing. Join the everyday crowd by subscribing to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. Look, we're all hurting. Everybody's hurting. You know, there's certain players on this team that you can just, everybody seems to have that relationship with. Nick Chubb is one of them. But either way, we got work to do. We got content we got to put out. Still waiting the final word on Nick Chubb, of course, and I'm assuming none of us are thinking it's going to be that great. And it's a shame because Nick was off to probably another monster game against Pittsburgh Steelers last night. John, we're going to get to it here now. Look, the Browns' offensive grades, you're seeing the clips here today. And look, you can't make excuses anymore. This is 8 games into it now. Last year, 6 games, a lot of time missed for Deshaun Watson, but he had the entire offseason. We tried to tiptoe around week 1, the weather, maybe, John, he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the game. He has to start playing like one of them.
Absolutely. I get that, the Bengals are a good defense. You have the weather. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a good defense, and it's Monday night or whatever, but you've got to step up to the plate, man. He's basically kind of looking like his rookie version this year. Last year, he looked worse than his rookie version. This year, he's looking like his rookie version. In his rookie year, he graded at a 68.1. His pass grade was a 64.1. The only difference this year, he's a 64.2 as a passer so far this year. His run game, his rushing ability is not what it was back when he was a rookie, when he had, fresh legs. And obviously he had the knee injury or whatever, at week 8 or whatever that season that ended his rookie year. But he doesn't still have the same juice that he did back then. He's just older at that point. So for Watson, he's not seeing the field. There's open guys that he's passing up. Even just he predetermines where he wants to go with the ball, and if it's not open there, then he's if the pressure's there, he's looking down trying to scramble. He's not looking up and trying to find plays to make down the field when he's scrambling, and that's like a huge difference there. He had a 2 turnover throws in the game yesterday. Regardless, obviously the interception was not one of them. That was off the hands of Harrison Bryant, but he's still not protecting the ball like you want him to protect, and he's not making the consistent plays down to down. So he's playing like a rookie quarterback rather than a $250 million quarterback.
And let's be honest, John, anytime you got 8 days to get ready for a ball game, man, the first play you're drawing up is going to Harrison Bryant. I mean, of course, why not feature tight end 3 right out of the box? You know what I'm saying? But that's a story, obviously, for another day. John, obviously, one of the highlights of last night's game, I don't want to maybe say highlights, one of the highlight matchups of last night's game was the debut of Browns rookie right tackle Dawaand Jones. And it might be safe to say, in one career start, we might be happier with the future of this right tackle than we have been now, year 4 plus ongoing of the left tackle.
100%. So Dawaand Jones still needs work in the run game. That is for sure. He's not great there. What he does have an issue. He doesn't have an issue with his pass protection at all. So the first sack that TJ Watt had was not on him. That was actually Jed Wills getting beat inside and then Watson having to bail out back of the pocket. And Dawaand Jones was in good position and just, rode 10 yards deep around the edge and made the sack on a cleanup sack, how we determined those. He did get beat up, a couple of times by Watt, which is inevitably going to happen to anybody.
No doubt.
He more than held his own against TJ Watt in pass protection. I think that is for him and for the Browns fans, that is a huge sign that, this guy might, has it. So I think, Jed Wills, on the other hand, he gets beat by a guy and then turns around and just watches, and he doesn't even yell, "Look out." A lot of times you get beat quickly and you're just kind of like, "Look out," the lookout blocks. He doesn't even do that. He just turns around and goes, I guess I got my 5th-year option, so I got paid.
Well, I mean, the thing that bothered me is, and it's not body language, because it's not. He watched the guy beat him, stood frozen, watched his quarterback go down, knew the ball was out. Look, I don't think you're going to catch TJ Watt anyway, but hey, bub, how about a little something for the effort? Could you actually, at least try? And he didn't move. I mean, it's bad enough to get beat, but look, we've all, anybody played ball, you got beat, but there's no substitute for hustle. You're asked to give everything you got between the whistles, and that was the part that's kind of, and look, it's been ongoing for years now. But in a situation like that, and look, it was an extremely difficult block for him to beat Alex Highsmith to the spot. But do something, man. Do something to contribute to the play, because you just left your guys in a bad spot. John, overall, the rest of the offense, something that interests you, something that you want to highlight while we close out this first segment here. Cooper was impressive for a guy nobody thought was playing.
Yeah, Cooper had a good game. Offensively overall, though, it was just largely disappointing. Chubb was onto a monster game until he got hurt. Jerome Ford, I thought, did well in place of him. He's not Nick Chubb on a down-to-down basis, whatever. He doesn't have the vision that Chubb has. He doesn't have the explosion. But obviously he broke off on that 69-yard run, which ended Minka Fitzpatrick's day, which is a lot of Browns fans will be happy about. But really, other than that, you look at it from an offensive perspective, the Browns offense outplayed the Steelers offense. It should have been enough, but you're talking about 2 fluke plays. That was the difference in the game for them.
Yeah, really, really difficult. And we're actually going to talk a little bit here about the rookie running back, because obviously all eyes are going to be on Jerome Ford. Now, guys, Jonathan Taylor's not coming to town. Okay, I mean, the Browns never wanted to pay Nick Chubb anyway. The Browns had to pay Nick Chubb. Had to. Because they couldn't set that example of being one of the best players in the locker room and then basically telling him goodbye. The analytic franchises don't work like that. Nick Chubb was the anomaly, so they're not trading assets for Jonathan Taylor and then paying Jonathan Taylor. So that one running around there, guys, sorry, I don't see that dog as being one that's necessarily going to hunt. Jeff Lloyd, John Kosko in for the ride. We're going to move it along here. Your latest Locked On Browns. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Lock On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire every week, we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. And why do we not just stay right here in Cleveland? If you have some running back issues, maybe we suggest buying a Ford. Jerome Ford, available probably on most waiver wires, didn't do much during the summer, got a heavy workload in week 1 to get back into shape, and with 131 total yards and a touchdown last night on Monday Night Football, he could be somebody that you could easily add to your roster. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each other being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride for the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. As you can tell, it was a very busy day in the content business, as Mr. Kosko has to either fire off an email or explain to somebody why somebody's grade is such. But, John, here's the thing, and we talked over the summer, and it was a lot of speculation over the summer. Was Jerome Ford enough? And then Jerome Ford goes down, misses most of the summer. Everybody that was here, all the guys, the John Kellys of the world, the Hassan Halls of the world, and Demetric Felton, nobody proved to essentially be an answer. They did make the move for Pierre Strong, 2 carries last night, 1 yard, did score his first touchdown as a Cleveland Brown. But now all eyes are on number 34, Jerome Ford. He is going to be probably the top back for the foreseeable future for this franchise, certainly through 2023. We'll see, where the future goes from there. But a nice debut, but it's a whole different thing when you jump in as the understudy, as opposed to now you basically are the leading man.
Yeah, and you think about it, right? He had this 69-yard run. He had 16 other carries for 40 yards. So other than the one run, it was largely not, wasn't very productive, I would say. I thought he did okay enough, right, in those 16 other carries. And obviously that one run is a monster run. But I think for Ford, he's going to have to, kind of get a better feel for this offensive line and what they're wanting, because, you miss all preseason. You're trying to get your feet wet and getting back into playing shape. And obviously he did that last week when the game was out of hand. They pulled Nick Chubb out and he gets a lot of his carries then obviously gets more carries in this game. But I think for, you think about it, right? Like Nick Chubb could make a lot of offensive linemen look good because he's just that good. Whereas like right now, Jed Wills is an issue. Dawaand Jones is an issue in run blocking, and the interior guys are pretty good. So it's going to be Jerome Ford's game, ball, basically spot to lose until maybe Pierre Strong comes in and learns the playbook and maybe they have a split backfield that way. They obviously traded for Pierre Strong for a reason, and they want him on their team because they're what are they going to do? They're going to put Elijah Moore back there? I don't think so. So, they probably will bring in another, backup or whatever veteran. Maybe they bring back, who's on the practice squad? Who's the guy that's been on there?
Hassan Hall.
Hassan, yeah.
Oh, John Kelly.
John Kelly or Hassan Hall, one of those two guys, because those guys look pretty solid in preseason. So, we'll see how it goes from there. But, those are big shoes to fill, and it's basically, to me, in my opinion, they've got to fix their pass game, because you now can't rely on, arguably the best running back in the NFL to get you yards every play now.
Yeah, we all know there's been times with this franchise where, they would try to throw the ball first 2 drives, do nothing, and then drive 3. All right, well, let's try to get Nick 5-6 carries on this drive. Guess what? They'd score a touchdown. Nick Chubb probably gets you 40, 45 yards. John, it seems this offense, and look, the odd front, the even front, everybody does different things nowadays. So to say anybody is, a 3-4 or a 4-3, it's not maybe the way to label it anymore, but it does seem that the Browns offense is one that seems to struggle at times when they are facing teams whose the base of what they do is considered a 3-4.
Yeah, it does seem like that. And I think they struggle with teams with really good edge defenders, right? So like they like to run their wide zone stuff. And if those guys can set the edge, it's forcing things back inside. And then you're relying on your 2 worst run blockers to make those blocks out there. And then you're also,
which is ridiculous because they've got both guys by 50 pounds.
I know, right? Well, for Jones, to me, like more of his mistakes in the game are like mental mistakes where he's, not quite sure where he needs to be. So they were backed up on a one of those drives where they're at the 1 or 2 yard line or something like that. The first play was a run play. And I believe he just went the wrong way. Like for whatever reason, you call zone right and he goes left, and it's like, do you know you're right from your left? It's like my conversations I have with some of my high school players that I coach. So, that's kind of the issues that he has, that are like, some of those are unsure of where he's supposed to be. And so I think once he corrects that, he'll be a much more which is a much better run blocker. But until then, that's the issue right now. And yeah, the teams that are based out of the 3-4, especially if they have some good interior players, they have an issue with that, which is interesting because like the interior of the Browns offensive line is the best. So it's what it happens is those edge guys are causing the problems because a lot of times it's TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith who are really good players, and the Browns can't match that.
Yeah, and you would think in a game like that where the defense gave where they gave you, there were just way too many opportunities. I know, the holding penalty. Yeah, it was a holding penalty on Joey Porter. Refs should have never been in that position. But now, as this evolves here, and John, you've got to make this work. Look, I mean, and we hear all the time, well, we went to Deshaun, sees what he likes to do, so we took this up. Enough with the cliches. Enough with stuff that the pundits want to hear. Guys, you got a $230 million quarterback. You got a great wide receiver in Amari Cooper. You got young developing wide receivers in Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David. There's skill all over the place. And Deshaun has done it in the past. It's got to get done because it's a bad look when all of this money isn't invested. And look, you want to say the offensive line's at fault? Yes. You want to say the quarterback's at fault? Yes. You want to say some of the play calling at times is an issue? Yes. All of that may be true. But the bottom line of the fact is you got to get it right.
Yeah. Do you think Andy Reid calls the perfect play every single time and Patrick Mahomes is, I guess I got it easy. No, Patrick Mahomes makes it happen. Travis Kelce makes it happen. Whatever other wide receiver they have there, they make it happen. It's on the quarterback ultimately to make sure that things go smoothly at that position for that offense. You look at the best in the world. You're paying this guy like he's the best in the world. Obviously, the Bengals haven't been great this year, but Joe Burrow 2 years in a row, AFC Championship game, Super Bowl. That's where he's been. Because do you think Zach Taylor's calling the correct play, perfect play every single time? Nope. But he's making it happen. So you have to make it happen. You're getting paid like you're one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. You better start be able to play like that.
And one of the things, is Deshaun. And look, guys who can run like that are going to leave the pocket. That's fine. But it seems like when he leaves the pocket, there's not a purpose to it. He doesn't leave the pocket to know whether or not he's creating a passing window for one of his guys, or if he's, leaving the pocket to say, what, heck, I can get the 6. We'll move the sticks, starting at 1st and 10. And indecision and indecisive like that. Look, a lot of plays happen on the fly. Of course, scramble drill exists for a reason. But I just think sometimes when he takes off, I don't think he knows exactly what the end game is or why he's taking off, which I do think is causing some of the problems for this offense. Look, this defense, and I know Don will be excited about this defense has been fun to this point. So we're going to switch over, and we are going to talk about one of the big positives from last night. And to this point, yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers scored 26 points last night. But to this point, the Cleveland Browns have given up on defense 17 points. So 7.5 points per game through 2 games against the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to talk about that next. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You just pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You must select 2 or more players, pick more or less on the projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. I tell you guys all the time, primetime games where I can sit down, put a lineup, and I can watch it the whole time. I don't want to zoom in and out of 10 games, but Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, I love putting together a lineup. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. closing out segment 3, your latest Locked On Browns. Jeff Lloyd, joined by PFF's John Kosko. Make sure you're following, of course, at John Kosko 3. John, you talk about the fourth quarter, only give up -7 yards. Could you imagine going into a fourth quarter with the lead? Your defense holds the offense to -7 yards, but somehow in that 15 minutes, you're on the wrong side of an L.
It's hard to fathom, really is. Defense has been lights out for two games now. You said that they've given up 17 total points this year. Obviously, 3 to the Bengals last week. They gave up the touchdown to George Pickens, but like even the first field goal that they gave up, I wouldn't put that on the defense. That was Browns defense was backed up, or Browns offense was backed up, had a crappy punt because of, I believe that Donovan Peoples-Jones let the punt just keep going over his head or whatever. I think.
I have no idea. He looked like he lost it in the lights.
Something like that, right? So they had a short field. They held him to 5 yards and 3 plays and forced a 3 and out, and they kicked a field goal. Like, you force a 3 and out and they kick a field goal and make it. It's like, did you really give up that, or is that somebody else that gave that up? And then they gave up. They did give up a field goal on the opening drive of the second half. Other than that, they didn't give up anything. Like, they shut down. Like, the one play that they gave up was kind of a bustage of an invert cover 2 where Denzel Ward should have been more over top of Pickens and JOK should have been deeper in his drop and stuff like that. But really, the defense has been awesome. Obviously led by Myles Garrett and companied up front. They're the 3rd highest graded defense so far for PFF through 2 weeks, with the Cowboys and the 49ers at number 1 and number 2. That's good company to be in. And, the New York Jets are number 4, and they're also 1-1, and they have their offensive issues. So I think the Browns just need to be average on offense with this good enough defense, and they can make a run for it. They can. But if they're playing if Watson's playing like the way he is, it's going to be all for naught with a defense that's going to be looking like it's elite this year.
Yeah, and that's one thing you got to be careful of, because how many times has one side of the ball always been a dominant side? Whether it's, we've seen it with a bunch of teams, and then all of a sudden that's when things don't go well for the team collectively, because one team is sick and tired of basically doing all the heavy lifting. But last night is an example of that. You cannot have your offense give up 14 points when you get a defensive performance like they got. Whether it's Grant Delpit, whether it's JOK. And I think the thing, John, which was great on TV, is because unless they zoomed in, you couldn't really tell player numbers, but all you saw was white and orange, and these guys were stronger and faster than everybody wearing black and gold.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice when you see that, right? Like, they're rallying to the ball. They were playing hard. They were playing with ferocity that we definitely did not see last year. And I think as long as the offense doesn't keep throwing away games, it'll be fine, right? Like, I think this is a good defense that can then legitimately win you games that like circa Broncos 2015, Ravens 2002, 2001. That type of caliber of a defense, and we'll see how long it's sustainable for or whatever. But like, you got those guys up front are getting after the passer. Talk about in this game alone, Myles Garrett with a 91.7, 91.1 pass rush grade. Yes, he did not have a sack, and it may to the people not paying attention, only looking at sacks and TJ Watt outplayed Myles Garrett. It's far from the truth. TJ Watt was actually pretty locked down by Dawaand Jones for most night. He got some cleanup pressures and stuff like that. He had three of his pressures he had were cleanup variety, and then he had a fumble return for a touchdown. It was just kind of like a lucky recipient of it, right? Myles Garrett had 7 wins that weren't registered as pressures because Kenny Pickett had to get the ball out of his hands quickly enough. Maurice Hurst was disruptive as a pass rusher with a 79.8. Obo Okoronkwo was 73.9. So like, you've got guys that they're all getting after the passer and winning their reps, and it makes life hard for an opposing offensive line, and it allows those linebackers to play freely. It allows the defensive backs to lock it down in coverage because they know that their defensive line can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to tell your corners, hey, just do your job for like 2.1 seconds. That's all I need. Otherwise, he's either throwing it to his mom in the stands by then, or most likely he's getting hit. He's on the ground. So if you guys can handle the first 2 seconds, I think we pretty much got it from here. And it's refreshing to see. But obviously, this was the premise from Jim Schwartz. It was to bring in these types of guys. And it wasn't just a couple of names, because the thing was, well, I'm not going to play all 4 of them for 70 plays. I said, I want to have a fresh defensive tackle on the field every play. I want to have a fresh defensive end on the field every play. And you're starting to see, how that goes from a theory to that becoming a successful plan on a field. And it's really worked well to this point. Appreciate always John for making his time to pop on here. Obviously, when we go from a Monday night game into, it's always makes, obviously for us who do what we do, makes it a shorter week. Obviously, we get a little break on Sunday, of course, but yes, it does make for a shorter week. And other thing is, we all still got lives, and we got people we got to answer to and people we got to take care of. So always appreciate John. Make sure you check everything out at John Kosko 3. John and the PFF team always busting their butts every day, trying to get us all the best, quality information we can as fast as we can. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen. The everyday crowd keeps on growing, so I suggest you join the party by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.